Hello, everybody. My name is Arjun Dev Aurora, and I am the founder and managing partner of Valence Advisory. We support funds and founders and help accelerate their efforts via people, capital, and strategy. And now, off to John.
Hello, John Lowe here, co-founder of Valence Advisory, and I am the lead on leadership coaching and all sorts of good things with Arjun Aurora. But today, enough about us. We have a wonderful guest. His name is Sheel Mohnot, and he is very seasoned, both as an operator and an institutional investor, and obviously a lot of other things in his life other than his work. And so, Sheel, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a bit about what you're up to these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sheel. I am a San Francisco-based venture capitalist. I invest in fintech companies, typically as a lead investor at the earliest stages at seed. And before I started doing this, I was an operator a couple of times, but both in fintech. And I have a partner that I work with on this. His name is Jake. And our fund is called Better Tomorrow Ventures.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And so, Sheel, having been an operator more than once, how did you get into venture? Why'd you get in venture? And, is the same reason that you're still in venture, or how has that evolved, if any, over time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so I got into venture because when I was an operator and I was raising from VCs, I thought, I like what's going on the other side of the table. It's like those people seem like really smart. They seem like they're the ones giving me money. Like I'm like going after bowing at their feet. I want to be on that side. Now, of course, like now that I am a venture capitalist, I know that actually like it's not that the VCs are smarter or anything like that. But I've wanted to do it for a long time. And then, after the first exit, I had a little bit of cash. So I started doing some angel investing. And I found that I really enjoyed that. And the part that I enjoyed was actually helping companies at the earliest stages. I had moved from Chicago to San Francisco when the company got acquired. And for me, angel investing was about, I think, three different things. It was one, like moving here, like getting to know people. Like I can hang up a shingle and then people will like meet me. It was a different time back then, 2012. But two, it was like, maybe I'll be inspired by these people and I'll want to start something or join them. And then three, it was like, okay, I might make money. And then four was like, this is a foray into an entree into becoming a real venture capitalist. And so those are my reasons for doing it. And then, a few years later, I ended up becoming a VC with Arjun and really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks. And then today, with the fund you're raising, same reasons, you're still in the game?
Yeah, the same reasons, and the reason I invest at the seed stage is I love having impact and like really helping companies. I love like thinking through complex problems, particularly around strategy, distribution, hiring, that sort of stuff. And then of course, like helping companies raise the next round. So I'd say like, those are the things that I really enjoy doing, have done several times in the past and can see myself doing for the foreseeable future. Like I don't see myself doing anything else. I really enjoy it.
Nice. Well, what a fortunate gift to find the career that you take to your grave.
Yeah, exactly. I feel really lucky. Really fortunate to be able to do it.
Being an early stage, very early stage, seed stage, and sometimes even earlier than seed, right? Investor.
Yeah, pre-seed, seed,
pre-seed and angel. What have you learned in terms of what to look for in those early stage founders? And more importantly, how have you developed your thinking around being supportive on how they build out their strategy or supportive of building their company, especially when what they're building doesn't really have a precedence, where they can't say, I am the Uber for, but they're trying to actually communicate something that they see that's very unique to them, that arguably most people have to actually catch up to or get educated on in order to actually see the founders thinking. They can't draw on biases of the past.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think a lot of it's interesting because in fintech nowadays, I invest in fintech, and it feels like there aren't a lot of new thoughts. There's a lot of derivative thinking. But for the truly new opportunities, or what I'd say, like when I started in this 5 years ago, it felt like there were a lot more new thoughts. And you have to just like make people believe. You have to paint a picture about what a future looks like and how your product helps them get there. And so that's, we love helping our founders do that at the early stages.
Yeah. And what do you, when you're looking at those early stage founders, whether they're, kind of producing things that are more derivative or tangential to what already exists, or looking at something truly visionary, what are the things that you're looking for in those founders? Maybe, with your fintech lens, but you've also done investing outside of fintech, so maybe more broadly as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the main thing I look for is a founder who can clearly articulate their vision. And it's weird because you might say like, well, what does clearly articulating your vision have to do with building a big company? And I'll say, well, if you can't clearly articulate your vision to me, you're not going to be able to sell your customers. You're not going to be able to sell future employees, and you're not going to be able to sell future investors. So like a clearly articulated plan for what you want to do and how you're going to go execute on it is really important to me. Because I invest in a specialized sector, fintech, I do like the people that I work with to know the space really well. And oftentimes I want them to teach me something a lot of times. And then I'm looking for leaders that I think can lead a company of hundreds of people in the future. And sometimes you just don't get that feel. And there's no way to quantify it. It's like a gut feeling that you have. But we're only looking to invest in companies that will have massive outcomes. And so I want to believe that this leader is going to get them there.
Nicely said. It's simple but effective, given your track record, right? Yeah, and it reminds me of something. It's like if you can also simply communicate it or communicate something effectively, one could argue that you've really understood the essence of the problem you're solving to a level of detail that allows you to get it across simply. Whereas if you have to go into talking about code, probably not the right direction.
It's I've never thought about this until you just said that, but it's like if you think about how like Steve Jobs described a new product versus how like the PC industry described a new product. It was like Steve described like a vision, and that vision is like what you were buying into versus the PC industry brought into like a bunch of numbers and jargon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Nice said. And having been an investor for some time now, and also having been an operator yourself and working so closely with founders, for up and coming founder potential, who they might be first time founders, what do you wish that crowd would know more of before they got involved in raising their first round, if any? That, and it's totally an open-ended question. It could be like, wish they knew more about VC, or wish they, drew on more resources available to pitch, or it could be anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, I wish they thought more about who they pitch and who they want to have involved. And I think, for me, it's pretty clear at the seed stage, what you want typically is you want to work with people that are going to help you most and give you the most support at the seed stage. So people that have founder empathy, operational know-how, industry experience, and a good signal for future investors. And I think people don't think about it as much as they should. Obviously, I'm talking my own book here, but I think that's really critical. I think, and by the way, I think like at Series A, what can be more helpful is actually a strong brand, and a strong brand can be helpful for recruiting and other things. And then Series B and beyond, I think you can just go for the best terms you get. But I think that's one thing that people miss a lot. I think people also, they don't know how to run a process. And I try to help people run a process as much as possible. You want to talk to as many folks as you can around the same time. And that's what I've found to be the most effective. Trying to think of other things I wish I knew. Man, there's so much. Like when I was getting started, I didn't know anything. We were really figuring it out as we went. And I would say, it's important to understand the industry that you're in and understand, how this process works. So talk to your friends who've done it before and get guidance from them around building an effective pitch and delivering it.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And as you said, you could probably share a number of other things that you wish you knew beforehand.
Yeah.
But curiously enough, really like the way you mentioned that you wish founders knew to be more thoughtful about who they selected.
Yeah.
At the early stage. Thinking in their shoes, it's obvious, understandable why expediency is so. it's such a temptation, right? Where you need money, you see the vision, and for sure that to execute upon it, it's not brains you're needing, it's resources, right?
Yeah. So why is it important? Is that
actually, what sort of muscle needs to be trained, if any, or what do you think they need to hear to be able to take a step back and actually breathe and go, okay, if I don't raise in the next month, maybe it's not the end of the world. Even though the bank is the bank account's ticking and they're thinking thoughts of should I on personal debt? Should I put in a bit of my own money?
Yeah. So I think the way to think about it is you're with whoever is investing in your company, you're going to be with them for probably 10 years. And that's a long time to get into business with somebody if you don't feel great about them. And so I like to think of it as a wedding. And, would you marry somebody that you just met and don't know that well and don't think that amazing of? Probably not. So I think about it that way. And I think, it really is important to set yourself up for the future, to take the time and find the right fit for you.
Thanks for providing that perspective. But we'll shift gears a bit more. So you've had quite a career in VC that I think spans well over a decade, right, Sheel?
In VC, it's actually I guess now 4.5 years.
Okay.
But you're not wrong. I have been angel investing since 2012.
Oh, since 2012. Wow.
Yeah.
Great. So some of the most memorable moments you've had as an investor.
Yeah, I think, it's always fun to see your companies have success. And so every sort of up round, you're celebrating a little bit. I'd say moments where I learned a lot are, helping co-founders separate. It's happened now multiple times in my portfolio, and I feel like I've learned so much every time about how to do it. And that's one thing that I'm sure is going to happen again in the future, and I'm much better prepared for. I think going into this, there's a lot I didn't know. And so every time I learn something that I know I can share to future entrepreneurs, I get really excited.
Oh, that's very cool. And, you talk about learnings you've had along the way that you can share with entrepreneurs or, specifically even around co-founder divorces. Throughout your career as an angel investor and venture capitalist, what did you learn about yourself, going through the ups and downs of the industry?
Yeah. Well, so one thing I learned is I like this more than being an operator. Because I can be there be helpful, give the advice, but then don't have to execute on it. And, that's a criticism oftentimes, but that's what I like about it also. I was a management consultant in a previous life, and that's also the criticism there. They tell us what to do, but then they don't actually execute on it. And that's what I do now. So, I learned that I enjoy that. And I feel like that's helpful to me in terms of like what I like to do as a career.
Oh, nice. And probably want to give you an opportunity to also clarify it, because I think there's a misperception that, and it could be argued that as an institutional venture capitalist, that your actions have no consequence, or that you're not accountable to someone else, right?
Yeah.
And whereas I'd like to give an opportunity to share some of the moments where, you are a steward of and responsible for big pools of capital that aren't entirely your own, right? Because when you're an investor, you're writing straight out of your bank account.
Yeah.
And then you go institutional and you're like, oh, there is a consequence.
Yeah, absolutely.
To saying yes. And can you kind of like get into that and communicate that to the audience a bit more? Because I think people understand it intellectually, but it'd be great for you to provide some perspective of any sleepless nights or you've gone either way on a deal and it wasn't an easy call,
Yeah. You're right that it is very different being a steward of other people's capital. And, when I was an angel investor, I was writing typically 25K checks versus now I'm writing $1 million plus checks. And it's not, for the most part, not my capital. So there's a lot that I have to think about. And it does impact certain things. Like I don't move as quickly. I, have a lot of legal review. I can't just invest in all my friends anymore. And I have to win the deal. So those are all things that are different. And the other thing that this is not quite an answer to your question, but one of the things I realized in getting institutional is we can't write small checks anymore. Like especially because we only invest in fintech, we're only going to invest in one company in a category. So we need to get the ownership that we need. So that was a learning that I always thought like, why wouldn't a fund write a small check to be supportive? And now I know that's not the way it works. And our LPs care about ownership. And I always thought like, why do they care about ownership? But now I understand it. It's a function of time that I have and also a function of influence on the company. Like, because of the position that I'm in as a lead investor, I have certain rights in the company. I'm a board member oftentimes, and that's important to my LPs in a way that I didn't think about or was not important to me as an angel investor.
Oh, that's super helpful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And so, when you go from writing smaller checks to bigger checks that require a lot more diligence, what are some of the consequences, whether positive or negative, that your brain like runs through before you get to conviction on a yes or no?
Yeah. There are a lot. One thing is, first of all, like I have to do a lot more due diligence now than I did before. And I didn't always as an angel investor, like I never wrote a deal memo. I was always just kind of going with the flow, going with my gut feel. Now I write a very detailed deal memo, and it actually helps codify my own thoughts. And then in terms of diligence, if you're writing a 25K check, you meet a founder, you can write a check. Now, if you're writing $1 million plus check, it's probably 3 to 4 hours with an entrepreneur, and then probably another 5 to 10 hours of work on the phone, like diligencing the team. So like talking to people that they've worked with in the past, and then diligencing the opportunity. And, that's at my stage, which is at the earliest stages of the company. So what I focus more on is the team, because the idea and the market can change and the team typically does not. So that's where I spend my time and what I have to be doing now as a institutional seed investor.
And it's obviously worked well for you.
Yeah, it's very early, but I've certainly enjoyed it, and we've had some early success. But that's the other thing in this business is like you don't really know how good you are for a really long time. It takes a long time to get to exits, and so you don't have immediate feedback the way that a public market investor does. So it's a different game, but I enjoy it.
Thank you. And obviously respecting confidentiality, when you look back at have you ever looked back on a deal that ended up not playing out so well and then looking at the memo and going, what went wrong? Was it fully an unforeseen risk? Was it something I flagged as a more minor risk than it turned out to be? Like respecting confidentiality, but kind of
Yeah.
love if you
No,
could share a bit about your process of learning and, you know,
it's very clear. It's just it's always people, and the times when things went wrong, I didn't diligence the people enough, and I didn't. And so now that's why I do a lot more. I might go overboard on it. It would just, it's not to say that actually, I've invested in people that had a mixed bag of feedback, but I wanted to get all that feedback and know what I'm getting into first. And that helps me address it. But yeah, I mean, there've been several times where I screwed up by not investing in the right people, various things. Once, I didn't like some of the judgments that they made that in hindsight, I know now if I'd talked to the people that they worked with before, I could have gotten to that earlier, or, people aren't as scrappy as I want. So that is another people judgment that I probably could have figured out earlier on.
wow. Yeah. And some of those things are easy to overlook, right?
For sure. For sure. But it's where like just the time and practice in venture helps you get over it. Like the way to get better is to, have practice and make mistakes the first time around. And fortunately in our first fund, we got lucky a bunch of times that made those mistakes and learnings like much easier to much more palatable. And so now hopefully this next time I'll make fewer of those mistakes and I'll make a different type of mistakes this time.
Thanks for sharing. I mean, you've been more than helpful in really giving us a bit of insight into being a seed stage investor. The other thing I want to give an opportunity because we're hitting for home and on time is as you grow your fund with Jake, obviously,
Yeah.
but because Jake's not here, I'm going to focus on you.
Okay. Yeah.
VC investors, there's a certain persona or perception that most founders have about venture capitalists. But if there are a few things that you would really want founders to know about you as a person, you as an investor, what would you hope they really understood?
So a couple of things that are like really cliche in venture, I'll say, which is, I think, we're in this because we want to invest in a better future. I feel like it's really cliched, but it's actually true for me and Jake. Like we genuinely think that our companies can make the world better, and financial services is a great entry point into improving people's lives. So we truly care about that. Again, it sounds hokey, but it's something that is true for us. And then, there's this notion of VCs not actually being helpful. And there's this like, how can I be helpful trope? I would say like we get real joy out of helping our founders think through issues and being there for founders. We tend to, with most of our founders, we're talking to them like on a daily or every couple of days basis. So we truly want to be there for the founder all the time. And it does motivate us. Like us having impact on the company is really motivational for us. So we don't want to just be, obviously we're cheerleaders on the sidelines as well, but we also want to be that trusted partner that they come to. So I think like that, I'd say like, even though it's a notion that VCs aren't helpful, we really try to be.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. And I know it's quite a direct question to ask in an interview, but is there anything else you'd like to share before we close this up?
No, this has been great. Really, really fun interview. Yeah, no, it's great. Thanks.
Yeah. So hopefully,
Thank
for
you,
any
Sheel.
founder watching this, reach out to Sheel.
Yeah,
Sheel's the
absolutely.
man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
Thanks, Sheel. Yeah.
It's fun.